All right, time to go.
Huh? That's what.
New setup, so.
Okay, welcome everybody. That was Himitsu Sentai Gorenger, which, if y'all aren't aware, the Ishinomori manga got released in hardcover over here, so about $25 if y'all want to check that out at some point.
It's a completely different story from the show.
Well, it goes a little more in depth with the suits in general and everything. In the show, they basically throw you in, and it was like, okay, they've got bionic suits. Well, they don't never tell you that in the show, really. They just do all the spectacular stunts. But they actually go a little more in depth than that and where the suits come from in the manga, which is 2 versions of the manga, which both are in the hardcover. One of them is more geared toward kids that would be watching the show, and then the more mature audience that just like reading the Ishinomori manga. And the way that Super Sentai got started was off of the tail end of Kamen Rider, which started in 71. In 74, they had Kamen Rider X and Kamen Rider Amazon. Now, Amazon was a little too gory.
It's violent.
For a lot of parents, so people weren't really feeling it. So they abruptly ended Kamen Rider Amazon earlier than they usually would, capping that story off, and the time slot that took over in April 5th, 1975 was Himitsu Sentai Gorenger, basically taking Ishinomori at where his superhero roots started, really, teams, because he was the first one to put out Cyborg 009, which was one of the first superhero teams in Japan. And
Go through their order.
there are basically all 5 of them are the last remaining member of a military unit that was destroyed by the Black Cross Army, which the Black Cross Army led by Black Cross King. This here is his original version in Gorenger, and then of course he had an updated look later on in the later Heisei, when they had some nice crossover deal with all of the Sentai, like 199 heroes back about 10 years ago now. And he also got a nice little makeover for a later series.
The alternate universe.
Yeah, to where he's in an alternate universe version. But Gorenger ran for almost 2 full years, which was almost unheard of at the time, because the Kamen Riders after the first was like a yearly thing. They'd come out for a year, like 50 episodes. The original Kamen Rider was 90 or plus episodes, like 93 episodes. Gorenger was 82. And moving on, The most ridiculous transformation ever.
Every time they change.
Yeah. They have to get no booth.
Use that.
ジャッカーは強化カプセルの中の各々の強化エネルギーを浴びて無敵のジャッカーになるのだ。
Well, the really good thing about the old Showa era of like Sentai series is the fact that you could come in and start watching an episode, any episode, and you'll be able to follow everything that goes on because they have a narrator come in and explain what's taking place. Just like a comic book would have the little panel up top that says deep in the fortress of, you know. You might be thinking, oh, there's only 4 of them.
Where's Big Boss?
Incorrect. Their Supreme Commander doesn't even transform until later in the series. Big One, he's like a super secret agent that commands them from the shadows until that point, where when he reveals himself, he's in disguises almost every time he shows up. He'll flip it off in his beautiful white suit, white hat, and he's played by the same dude who was the Blue Ranger in Gorenger, and probably best known as either Haketsu Zubat from another Toku series or Kamen Rider V3, the second Kamen Rider series.
That series is called J.A.K.Q. J.A.K.Q. for the
J.A.K.Q.
suits.
Dengekitai. Like a lot of episodes and everything from some of the ones that you'll see here, you can actually check out full episodes on Toei's Toku channel on YouTube. It's fantastic. They translate them into English and everything. It's great. And there's a lot of other non-Sentai or Kamen Rider related stuff in there. That's just a joy to watch.
But the year after J.A.K.Q.
Okay, this started a collaboration with Marvel. They took a year off from Sentai, and I want to point out that the reason you're seeing this right now is because Spider-Man had the first giant transforming robot in live action. And when they were going to go, because this started like a 4-year partnership with Marvel, where they were licensing things out, but the next thing they were going to bring over, they thought Captain America, because he was the next popular character overseas. But how do you bring Captain America to Japan? He wouldn't be Captain America. So we get Battle Fever J. 1979.
地球が悲鳴を上げてるぜ誰かが僕らを呼んでるぜ海を行く空を飛ぶ
You're an international team.
Yeah.
5つの命が怒りに踊る
That's right, learn yes in various languages. This is also the first time you see like a commander gun. Ends up being a staple in live action series. They have my favorite transformation ever because it's so friggin' smooth. They just go, fever, and then just do a little spin into the outfit. It's great. And they had the first giant robot in Sentai history. the Battle Fever Robo.
It basically came out of a big box.
It is awesome. They did like a nice reprise toy of it a few years ago, to where if you got the toy, it had the frame that they were constructing it on that doubles as a weapon rack for all the weapons on the figure. It has like a belt buckle that opens up, and they jump into the cockpit that way. Well, you got Battle Japan from Japan. You got Battle Kenya from Africa, which is portrayed by the next Sentai, Denji Blue, and he was also best known as Space Sheriff Gavin from the 80s. And you got Miss America, which gets brought in from America on the first episode. Battle Cossack from Russia, and Battle France, who is a Japanese hairdresser. And they all randomly speak the other language. So it's really kind of neat. And he's a terrible hairdresser.
And they're all Japanese.
Well, you know, the same way as it's hard to get certain nationalities to play you, especially in that day and age, you know.
Especially in the 70s,
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, this right here is probably the one that I'd like to see most come back, make a comeback, get a new partnership with Marvel and just do a full movie. It would be great. Moving on. Now we're in the 80s. Still part of the partnership with Marvel.
どこかで誰かが叫んでる急げデンジマンデンジスパークだ頭にきらめくデンジメカ戦いの海は牙で飛べ
Digiman had one of the weirdest side characters. They had the Denshi dog, which was like this tan Shiba Inu that had psychic abilities that could talk to him. And they had early CG, stop motion computer animated graphics for when they put the fists on that would give them superhuman punching power. Speaking of first, all right, this right here you might recognize as actors. Michiko Soga was, Bandora, Rita Repulsa, pop her up. She was Queen Hidarin, the main villain from Denjiman. And then into the last series with Marvel.
Tall.
Sun Vulcan is a standout from the rest of Super Sentai because there's only 3 members of Sun Vulcan. 4 if you count that the red gets replaced. Not just the actor, the actual storyline actually writes it, so he gets replaced. which is unheard of, really. But happens. That was Hidorin in her form when the evil Hell Satan brought her back.
Found her frozen at the North Pole.
This is when you get the poses.
That was also the first one they tried to bring to the U.S.
Yeah.
Stan Lee tried to
Stan Lee in the 80s was hardcore wanting Son Vulcan to come to the United States and worked tirelessly for like 3 years to try and get it over, and they just weren't having it. Which is weird because the same exact premise he put out is what Saban picked up and ran with later. Almost the exact same pitch.
I think their reasoning was that it's kind of strange, right? And,
Yeah.
and they're like American audiences wouldn't get it.
The funny thing is that one of the network heads that actually picked up Saban's idea was one of the ones that was in the room when Stan
That very
Lee
same room.
did the pitch originally.
But this is Hell Satan, Hedron, and the Zero Girls, the villains from Son Vulcan.
Which, if you watch Son Vulcan, if it would totally make sense to you. Have you ever been spurned by a woman? It's an evil robot. Almost every time some woman shows up, it's an evil robot. It's like, what? Like, there's one side female character to Son Vulcan that's a support character. She's the only one that isn't an evil robot in that show.
We're making too good of time.
And Hell Satan, of course, inspired by Star Wars. What couldn't point that out? We used to call him Japanese Darth Vader.
A lot of translations will call him Hell Saturn instead because
Yeah.
it's basically the same word in
Well,
Japanese.
it's mainly because they try to gravitate away from any religious type things. They just four kids the name. Yeah. Oh, that's not the black magician. That's the dark magician.
Didn't Witch Pandora try to summon literal Satan in an episode?
And
It's not literal Satan. It's actually an evil god.
yeah, it's essentially space Satan.
Yeah. That actually shows back up in later series when they end up having a crossover. I summon it again.
Like how in the ending of Shikenger, they weren't opening a portal to hell, it was a portal to the underworld.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, technically, that's a more accurate statement
Yeah.
because they were on the River Styx.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, that's the underworld. That's not.
Oh, well, yeah, you're right.
But bringing that one up, that's probably the most well-written one
Oh,
of the later series because they took inspiration from actual Japanese mythology and folklore for the villains and samurai mythos for the heroes, and it was like the most purely Japanese Sentai.
Which one thing you can notice going through the entire run of the Super Sentai is you go from different themings, and that's the theming just ramps up as it goes because originally it's just it's a military unit, it's a military unit.
What it is for some points you have what's big at the time, where back in the 70s. Hey man, there's a lot of war stuff going on. A lot of war toys are the biggest sellers. So, military unit. Makes sense.
that's why they
Then
have
later,
dinosaur seasons.
you get like James Bond and stuff like that. J.A.K.Q, they're all like agents. It just flows that way. And Sentai rolls with it, which you'll actually see something specific later.
But next up is, oh, come on.
Probably one of the most catchy choruses you'll hear today. I need to get this one stuck in his head. One of the greatest and kookiest set of support cast ever, because their commander has an entire room full of computers with school children, and they're referred to as the computer boys and girls. Goggle-V is weird, and most of their fighting style has to do with rhythmic gymnastics. Yes, they pull out the ribbons and go around in later series like Gokaiger and Zenkaiger. When they activate the special power of Goggle-V, they'll whip out the rhythmic gymnastic gear.
Not a ribbon. But that's another thing that you touch on is the openings. You'll see a lot of shots where they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we're
That right
getting
there,
active in sports."
you're starting to get the explosions now.
Yeah. But
Like hardcore.
like there's sometimes you'll see shots that are almost identical between the openings. Like usually it's the female
It's
cast
purpose.
member is she's a swimmer.
It's purpose, because you want the people from last year to recognize it's in the same franchise. That's the reason why you have the commander, got the girl that might swim, or the little fashion pose. You'll see that a lot with the girls in the old show era. They'll just do that glamour shot for their introduction in the opening,
A lot of them were models too.
or became models as a result of being on the show.
Yeah.
Which is the way a lot of them in the modern era get. Is that chick that played Sailor Moon on the live action. She got one hell of a modeling contract after that show ended. So did half of the cast.
Yeah, let's move on to the next one, I guess. Still making way too good a time.
Yeah, but I Now, if you thought you would see explosions, it looks like they're outright trying to kill these people.
It's also the second time you see somebody boxing and knock out weapons.
And yes, Dino Black just outright flies. If you haven't noticed, they're all sports themed. because the theming was originally supposed to be, oh, it's a baseball, it's a baseball team. And you can even hear all the cracks of the bats. And they even have weapons that look like bats. But for some weird reason, they said, some executive said, oh, nobody's going to watch a show about a baseball team. And then, as big as Japan has with baseball, it's the national pastime here, and we don't have it as big as what Japan does. But it's weird because they said, okay, and then they gave every single character a different theming, and they're all different sports other than baseball. Like, Black's a martial artist, and the wire work with frigging Black in this show is ridiculous. He will literally just go whoop, and they just throw him over a tree.
They do a lot of the, it's like they take the stunt work from Spider-Man, Toei Spider-Man, and just amp it.
Yeah.
Instead of just dragging him up the side of a building, it's straight, like a rubber band.
If you get a chance, speaking of Spider-Man, if you get a chance, Netflix has that on Toys That Made Us and shows like that.
Yeah.
They have an episode of one where, for Japanese Spider-Man.
It's on Disney Plus.
On Disney Plus. They've got an episode of deal that has Japanese Spider-Man. You can see how much love the people that worked on that show, even the stuntman. The stuntman came up with all of the stuff himself. All that stuff that they, to this day, still use that they started for Spider-Man just to get the effect right. Because how do you film somebody coming up a building?
Oh, yeah.
It's wild. I mean, they went one step further than they did with the American iteration of that, to where he'd go up the building and they'd have it to where he'd turn around and look between his legs and with some groovy music or whatever. But they
That was like half the show.
They just took it to like the penultimate when they did it in Japan. Oh my God!
It just kept getting more and more complex.
More and more elaborate. And which one do we have up next, Matt?
Bioman.
Oh, Bioman. All right. You can really tell this lady. As you can see, Bioman stepped up a whole miniature stuff. Tiny and Bioman's robot is one of the few that actually some toys made it over. Because they did a lot of Hasbro, I think it was Hasbro, had a bunch of licensed deals when Voltron and everything came out. Matchbox had some of them. They released some of the robots as just additional toys on top of their stuff. Like they released the Voltron toys. Oh, well, we have these other robots too to try and sell more toys. And some of the Sentai stuff made it over that way. Like they had back in the 70s, they had the Shogun Warriors line of toys, and we're talking about big, like, Go-Nagai robots that stood this tall. I've got Demos sitting on my shelf at home next to Godzilla. That was the first released American Godzilla toy. It was just friggin' big with a launching fist, and his tongue, it has like a flaming tongue that flicks out. He's great. I still have him too. But there was one of them that was planned to come out that never came out, and that was the Leopardon.
Yeah, from Spider-Man. Talking a lot about Spider-Man.
And Bioman, like I said, Bioman started a lot more with a lot of the miniature work, to where they'd have little fighters and things that would go out and shoot at the giant robot while it's putting together and stuff like that. It seemed a lot more like they were fighting a war against an army, rather than just fighting Monster of the Week.
So we're 3 series ahead of schedule here.
Yeah, but that was Bioman.
Yeah. And here's a...
Hey, ask anybody that loves Super Sentai, what's your favorite series? No one ever says Bioman. Changeman came up out of the way of the popularity of the A-Team, which was just being like dubbed into Japanese over there at this time. So, military units back, and hardcore. And the most Vegas intro you'll ever hear to a Sentai. Hey, we got like a Nick Fury style commander. Changeman's great. Like I said, it picked up right out of like the A-Team's popularity. And Japan was loving that stuff. Like so much started gravitating more toward military teams and things, even the anime at the time. Like 85, man, big time violence, anime. That's when you get a lot of Go-Nagai stuff coming back.
Yeah, a ridiculous violent anime. So the live action's a lot tamer than that.
Yeah, way more. Although you do get lots and lots of gunplay in Changeman.
The team themselves, they have big bazookas as their weapons.
Yeah.
Like most of them, they're like, oh, this guy's got a bow,
Well, you know,
this guy's got a sword.
most-
All of them had big bazookas.
Most Sentai, going on through the years, they got like a gun and a sword, or a gun that turns into a sword, or a sword that turns into a gun. Something of that nature. And then they might have their personal weapon, like, oh, that guy's got a bow. Like, Gorenger, you had, the Red Ranger had like a sidearm. He's the only one that had a holster. He had like a sidearm, but then he had like a cane that he used kind of like a sword and everything, and a whip. Then you had the Blue Ranger, which was a marksman. He used a bow. You had the Green, he had a boomerang, just like the arc shape on his mask. As a matter of fact, he goes up like this
He pulls it
and
out of his
materializes it out of his mask. And of course, you know, every one of them, they had their own little profession. And like the Yellow Ranger was super strong. There is no, in Super Sentai, there is no character called the Black Ranger. None. Because the only ones that were ever called Color Ranger was Gorenger. The ones that started. From then on, they thought up more elaborate names.
they didn't want them to get confused over the years. Like when you look at Power Rangers, every one of them it's like a blue series ranger. That's how they had to separate them because they just call them it's the Red Ranger the whole time.
Yeah, dude, like kids, like it would get confusing for a person that grew up with a show to hear a kid talk about whichever iteration is that year because they go, I love the Red Ranger. Oh man, I dug Jason too. I'm like, no. Do you mean Tommy? No.
Did you mean harder?
Yeah, exactly. It's like in Japan they like to differentiate it a lot more so that people growing up with the show can talk to the younger audience as well. Because the characters all have different names.
Alright. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which
ある日、地球から5人の子供が宇宙の果てにさら
I
わ
want to point out,
れた。そして20年後、
does anybody remember breakdancing?
超新星フラッシュ
That's fantastic. 'Flashman', it's an odd backstory because it'll start you into the backstory, and they're like a family that has been like done from different planets or something, to where they each represent like different planets in the sun, like in like another solar system or something. It's like I said, it's odd. Some aliens come down to Earth with big pompadours and decide.
like a space gang.
Yeah, this is like the first one that looks like an actual space gang. Which, that ain't the end of that, because if y'all know what are we, Turbo next?
No, Maskman.
Oh, that's a whole nother. Okay, before he plays this thing from Maskman, oh dear God. There is a, Maskman is weird. And when I say Maskman is weird, they have, who's familiar with the Takeshi's Castle or the,
Most Extreme Elimination Challenge.
The guy who runs the army that storms Takeshi's Castle, the big elaborate outfit or whatnot, he starred as the master of Maskman. And they use what is referred to as aura power, to where you use like the strength of the spirit and everything to do shit like the Force. You know? And in the opening, he actually goes, with his legs folded and just levitates. So you're like, okay, what's going on here? And it's, the opening started with an oily muscle man just posing and like splitting a big thing of ice or something. And from the giant thing of ice, boom, it spun around and it's all the characters all jumped up in the air. And he goes, Maskman, and spins it
Got a
around
big
to the
title
logo.
graphic on a static background. It's weird.
Yeah. And they had the most ridiculous, when they had a theatrical release, they all did this dance beside a pool. I wanted to play that, but there's no really good quality video of that because it's not got a DVD. That movie hadn't have a DVD release yet. So what they did was they would freeze frame it while they did the credits on the screen, and they'd freeze frame it at the exact wrong time to where they just look like they're getting ready to fall in the pool or something. It was ridiculous. And this is the dance that they did. And this starts another trope of Sentai. This is the first Sentai ending dance.
That's the dance I want to see people doing in the hallway.
No Hikari or the Lucky Star deal. That's the one you want to do.
Maskman jet cannon dance.
That the
But the Q
Mighty
Ranger
Ranger was.
trust.
Yeah, Q Ranger's.
Man, how did you like how they did that? They took it away when they added the kid.
Yeah, now it's just.
If anybody's not familiar, Q Ranger was a couple of years ago. They were an intergalactic hero team to where they all came from different stars in the cosmos. And they had an ending credit dance that had a pelvic thrust in it. And one of the characters later added just a small way into the series, they start adding heroes. There's the biggest lineup of characters that are part of that team of any Sentai.
There's 12 of them. They're called Q Ranger for 9.
That's the legend.
Yeah. But the one they add a kid. And it literally is a kid in the suit and everything too. So it's not like on Kiba Ranger from Dai Ranger, which y'all know is Tommy the White Ranger. Now that was a kid in Japan. And when he transformed, it literally had a transformation sequence that sized his body up into the suit.
Just like Justin.
Yeah. And which they embraced it there. Why didn't they embrace it before? But like, we could have got a new character out of the White Ranger. But
Hey, Liveman is next.
all right. Okay. Liveman goes a step further. It starts with the Sun Vulcan kind of theme of there's 3 characters. But what happens is this evil scientist comes and basically makes deals with these students because they're about to graduate from some big scientific academy.
He's the professor at the academy.
And he goes and twists these 3 students up and mechanizes them. They're all friggin' they're either cyborgs or one of them is genetically modified. There he turns into a friggin' monster. And they destroy the friggin' school, and almost everybody in it, save 3 characters, which is our 3 starting heroes. And then a few episodes later, you get the other 2, which are the brothers of 2 of the other students that were their classmates. So they're like a year younger than the main 3. And this is when you start going into the actual dramatic deaths. Because Liveman has the first dramatic death. You cry. If you watch the entire series, you ended up crying for the main villain. And we're going to watch it right now. His whole thing was he was trying to regain his youth. And the final battle takes it completely back out of him and then some. First fusion weapon. Who's a fan of Helsing? Did you recognize his voice? Lord Beerus is Arukago. Oh, or if you're a Kuru Gunso fan, he's Kiruru.
Corporal Guerrero, yeah. He's also the voice of the weapon in Kamen Rider O's, the Puto Tyrannosaurus as well.
And he's also the one that if you watch Kamen Rider O's, he's the one on the ending. Help the middles! I think he also did Bird's Bell.
Yeah, I think so.
And for those of you that remember 300, he was the Japanese dub of Leonidas.
Oh.
and actually in English goes, "This is Sparta!" Dude is like the friendliest guy in the world. I met him a few years back, and me and him chatting held up an autograph line for 20 minutes.
That was all about Liveman.
Yeah, we were talking about Liveman.
He was unaware that anyone in the U.S. had ever seen Liveman at all.
Yeah.
It just made his day.
And he actually, he didn't give anything away, but he told me to tune in to a specific episode of Gokaiger where he actually came in and did the voice for the robot that was in the Liveman episode.
But next up, we start getting into the more ridiculous theming that you start seeing a running theme of throughout different series of Sentai.
They get radically different as you get into the 90s.
Which this is 1989, so this is the...
Oh, yeah. Bad placement on that song, man. Hey, now, a lot of people say, "Oh, Turbo Ranger, yeah, we know the Turbo Rangers because like that movie, a Power Ranger movie, the Turbo, that was Turbo Ranger."
The one that often gets confused with is Car Ranger.
Which, they do have one little inkling in between them other than like theming that's similar, and that's the fact that Turbo Ranger gets their gets their abilities from a fairy. I am not joking, a fairy. And one of those dolls they made for that fairy goes for like $250,000 if it's in the original box.
Yeah.
But Turbo Ranger is weird, and oh man, that's another guy that sings the song. He's the dude that is the Red Ranger, is Red Turbo, is the guy who sings the friggin' song, the theme song for not only that, but Zyuranger, which y'all know is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And that dude, oh man, he gets into that song big time. You can, like I said, you can see some of the performances on YouTube. Oh man, it's something to behold. But yeah, Turbo Ranger's weird. Car Ranger gets there, it has car magic.
Which even if you go through, the Power Rangers get their powers from Zordon. The Zyuranger got their powers from a magician from space, which is like dinosaur magic.
Well, you know.
There's
the Power Rangers Turbo got their abilities from like the cleanest friggin' ghost ship I've ever seen in my life.
But like you get weird scenes with them. Like you have the wizard like leans out to listen to something, and then you have this giant ear come out from behind
it's
him.
Great. The white wizard is great to where he'll go, and all of a sudden you'll see the ear go. Whirr.
Yeah, with Turbo Ranger you get that fairy, and then it skips a couple of years with the weird stuff like that, and then like Zyuranger hits and it just goes and gets weirder and weirder as it goes.
Like no joke, at the end of Zyuranger, they're all on a cloud with the creatures, and they're all waving goodbye as the cloud goes away.
But after this, we get another catchy tune.
That took somebody all of 5 minutes to write. Watch your hands. Somebody went into an office and said, well, what are they called? Well, there's 5 of them.
We're running out of names.
Common rather, they just now started running out of names.
Oh, yeah.
Starting to repeat. And yes, they're all a family.
Another thing that keeps coming back.
Every so often. Yeah. Well, they've got a goofy dad, so it makes up for it on that. Just go tool around the hovercraft for no reason. See, they had a hovercraft, but Gorenger's movie had a speedboat. I don't think there was any purpose in them riding in that speedboat either. But yeah, Fiveman's weird.
It kind of sums it up with Fiveman. I can't even properly remember their origin story at the beginning of the show. They're
a family.
yeah, they're a family.
And I believe it's either that one. I think it's that one that starts off like it almost looks like the Lost in Space set, where there's like a robot that takes care of them, whatever. The parents are gone. They're like on a little farm on another planet. Fiveman's weird. I hope Fiveman shows up on that Toei Toku deal so more people can see how weird Fiveman is.
Some of the I don't think a lot of Sentai stuff is showing up on that yet.
Gorenger is.
Gorenger, yeah.
It is if you use a VPN.
Ah, there you go.
There you go right there.
Come on, that's blocked for US, stupid.
Ah, well, that's probably for
Doesn't
rights.
even have. Doesn't
Yeah.
have. Oh yeah, that's because some of them are licensed out.
Hasbro doesn't want to play nice with Toei.
Well, that's also the reason you haven't seen a lot, even more of like Shout Factory stuff, to where they were putting out the Sentai series. Why you haven't seen any more of those is because they're struggling with Hasbro right now, because Hasbro has the Super Sentai rights.
And they need to learn to play better. And they own all the big toy licenses, but they don't know how to play this.
Yeah.
I'll say this, man. I would love to see some of the Mighty Morphin Sentai show up as figures in that damn Lightning collection. Oh my God. The thing that boggles my mind is nobody has started 3D printing and selling the heads of like Japanese actors for the Lightning collection yet. But you can get like any actor you want. You can get a friggin' David Hasselhoff head for a Nick Fury figure.
Yeah.
I want a Bill Bixby for Bruce Banner.
So Fiveman was, of course, the first one in the 90s. So that's the
Now we are in the 90s. We are no longer in what Toku calls Showa.
Then we go
Which actually ended earlier, but
1991, the year before we got what became known as the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and had one of my favorite NES games with a giant robot fight in it. We have Chōjin Sentai.
Chōjin Sentai Jetman!
Now, here's where we start dipping into the Power Rangers, because this was the first series in the license for Power Rangers. But 91, you know what came out in 91, don't you? Later on that year, Jurassic Park came out. And it hit big. And when Toei showed him the plans for the next year, he waited a full year so that he could get a hold of Zyuranger, because the dinosaur theming fit more in line. And because, hey, everybody's crazy for dinosaurs again, Power Rangers took off bigger than it would have. But Jetman, like I said, is another one of those that dives in headfirst into the dramatic part. This is the first time you get one of the actual heroes themselves dying in a spectacular way. Black Condor has a death scene, and oh my God, it's so ridiculous. It's elaborate, and if you know about the current Sentai that's running now, Zenkaiger, which is the 45th anniversary series, they use gears that give them the powers of specific Sentai. Like if they go off and they use there was a character that could stop time. Well, he paused time to where it really went slow. They used Turboranger to speed it back up. They used the Jetman gear, and it recreated the entire death scene from Black Condor for no reason.
Well, the villain in that episode was, it had the ability to make people fall in love with each other. So in order to stop his power and take him down, they reenacted that final scene. The final scene of
I actually
Black
remember that villain's name, because I watched that one a while back. They called him Wolfman. It was so stupid, but it was Wolfman, with a freaking W.
Well, they get started really early in, because Jetman is sort of an homage to Gatchaman. Insofar as the character interaction between Gatchaman and Joe the Condor is the same relationship that Black Condor
with
and
Black
Red,
Condor,
and Red
who
Hawk
is named Joe. And Black Condor's he's supposed to be showing up to the wedding of two of the other members, like the female member and whatever. They're getting married. He's late to the wedding, and they're like, "Where is he? He's late." And you see where he is. He's at the dock.
He combated
looking out
evil,
of
he's
the water.
dying.
And he stops somebody from getting robbed.
Right, he gets
so it's a
stabbed
hugging,
in the
and he gets
process.
stabbed, and he just dies there with no one aware of what happened.
And like I said, this is the big turning point with that, to where Black Condor, they have a great episode of Gokaiger that centers around Black Condor, because Gokai Silver can see him.
Guy Silver is the only one that can't see him.
Well,
Because
Gokai
he's
Silver's
the
only one that
sixth,
can.
and Jetman was the last series that didn't have a sixth member.
Which Car Ranger, it gets a little shaky on that.
But like the first sixth member is
They technically
Dragon
have,
Ranger.
They technically have 7 members in Car Ranger, but the Phantom doesn't count, because the Phantom doesn't actually fight in that.
Yeah, Jetman is of course the one that even the heroes will be able to die. Which goes in to Zyuranger, everybody's favorite Power Ranger, the Green Ranger, Dragon Ranger. He dies. That candle that ran out in the show, that wasn't that evil Green Ranger. That was when that candle runs out, he dies.
What it is the candle remains, it lit, it lights, but it doesn't melt down unless he leaves that location. If he leaves that location where the candle is to help fight evil or whatever, the candle starts burning down. So again, another really tragic character.
My God, that's why at that point, like, oh, we need to stop, get him out of the show for a while in the Power Rangers, is because that character was dead. They were out of footage.
They had no more
You
footage
have
of
the
it.
Dragon Shield that goes on. It goes on the Red Ranger for that. That's because the Dragon Ranger is on.
He gave the last of his ability to his brother.
Yeah,
Which
they're
in
brothers.
the original, his brother, J.A.K.Q.
And that just goes along. There's a few others that die on Operate Killer, which was the white Dino Thunder. or whatever.
Well,
I don't know what they called it in that. I didn't watch
way.
Dino Thunder.
I watched a little bit of it, but that's mainly because when it was running in repeat or whatever,
Yeah.
they had it all out of order. But you can actually see a dubbed episode of Gorenger because in the run of Dino Thunder, they had the characters that were Dino Thunder watch a damn TV show of them in Japan,
It's like
and
a full episode.
they just dubbed an episode. Which, by the way, if you're a fan of like Japanese commercials, you ever see like the SoftBank dog, Otosan? His black son is the baseball player in that episode of Gorenger that they dubbed. So a naturalized citizen of Japan that comes from America actually got dubbed into English by somebody else.
Another thing that, when would you think the very first crossover of Super Sentai was?
With Gorenger?
No. It was J.A.K.Q versus Gorenger.
It was a theatrical release.
And it not only showed that J.A.K.Q and Gorenger existed in the same world.
They had
it
a
was
big map.
Ultraman was fighting evil in that during that storyline.
They had a big
Kamen
map.
Rider.
Spider-Man,
Yeah.
all of the other Toku series up to that point were on a big map when they were talking about how they were trying to win the war against the Black Cross Army.
And that's like the big final battle with the Black Cross Army too, is that movie.
Because the end of Gorenger goes to where the Black Cross King turns into this giant fortress, which just looks like a giant flying star, and they literally fly in with the friggin' vehicles, escape in their airship, and blow up all the bikes next to the reactor and blows up the fortress. It's an amazing climax. The cool thing is that all of Gorenger have these little mini capes that come down about right here. Those mini capes kind of cover up this little jetpack that's on their back of their belt, and that's how they get up to the plane if it's in the air.
And of course, there is Big One and Blue are played by the same actor, so he's doing double duty throughout that movie. They have him split screened on there, and it's when they need to be together.
And there's a great one, Gorenger versus Super Sentai, which if you're not familiar with what Gorenger is, it was Power Rangers Wild Force over here. And Galaxus! Like
That's one of the
robot.
weird ones where they turn yellow female, even though he was male in the Japanese version.
Now, I need to point out that that and In Space are the two series that Walmart for a long time would not carry toys from Power Rangers. And the reason is when they made the toys, You got the big muscular Power Rangers, then they got the females with breasts out to here.
That wasn't the
kid
only
you
toy
not.
line affected, but yes.
And the artwork is just as bad. You can find all the drawing artwork on the party supplies, on the soundtrack to the Power Rangers Around the Wild Force Time, had these big honking hooters on the Yellow Ranger, which was a dude. And in Zyuranger, to top it all off even more ridiculous, the Tiger Ranger, his friggin' name is B.O.I. Boy! And oh my God, that actor's got the bluest friggin' eyes.
Yeah.
If you see him on Facebook, you can't miss it, man, because it looks like the eyes are trying to drill their way through your head. But
in that crossover, my point
he's also shorter than the actress that played the Yellow Ranger in Mighty Morphin, to where when you see them transform and they're all standing beside each other, the Yellow Ranger looks like this.
But Gao Yellow in the Gao Ranger versus Super Sentai crossover, he
teams up with Red
Eagle from Jetman.
Yeah.
And they actually visit Joe's grave in that, and they have the whole thing where he's training him in the swordsmanship.
And the one that gathers them all together as a team is Big One. You have Big One in that. You have the red from Liveman. You have the blue from Goggle-V.
Yeah.
No, yellow from Goggle-V.
Yellow.
Which uses a martial art based on him drinking milk. I am not joking.
Yeah.
He'll look like a giant flying suplex or something, and it'll show a milk glass going like this, like somebody's drinking the milk.
Hey, one of the things that gets lost in translation to Power Rangers is the goofiness. Because Power Rangers, it gets goofy in a different way. It's not like, oh, the characters are these just weirdos. Because sometimes they're just weird people. Going all the way back to Gorenger, you have Key Ranger, the Yellow Ranger. He has super strength. How did he get so strong? He just sits down and eats a whole lot of curry. Which they hang out in the curry shop for most of that. That's the hideout.
The entrance to the secret headquarters of Gorenger is a curry shop. There's a hidden door that you have to have all 5 pieces of the Gorenger symbol, plug it slap it against a slot on the wall, and it opens up the elevator down into the fortress, which has their airship and everything down there in an underground bunker.
Yeah, and that shop actually comes back in Gokaiger too.
There's for the vehicles and everything, they did something really cool on Gokaiger and the 199 Heroes, to where to be able to use the abilities of Gorenger and everything. Some older fans that grew up with Gorenger had one of the toys, and it worked like the Ranger Key, and actually brought all the vehicles to where all of the other mecha showed up.
Because the vehicles were destroyed, so...
Yeah. Whichever respective series, they were either destroyed or submitted inert when all the Sentai teamed together and put all their powers into one attack.
So that happens at a lot of the big climaxes at the end of the series. It's like, oh, something gets completely wiped out. Like Deca Ranger has all of their robots that just get fucking destroyed.
A really good one is Maji Ranger with Mystic Force over here.
Yeah.
In the final battle, because the original Kamen Rider set a precedent, because not too far into the series, when they were shooting the motorcycle stunts, because at that point the actor was in the suit too. And that set the precedent for suit actors for the Toei shows, because he broke his leg. And it was terrible. He'd be laid up for a long time, and they needed to keep going because the show was going. So they brought in another character and wrote it to where when his convalescence was over, he could come back and there'd be 2 common riders. So they did it that way. And in the Maji Ranger climax, it is the actual actors in the suits, because their helmets are all shattered and you can see them in the helmets. So they trained them, the suit actors trained them to fight in the exact same fighting style they used for the climactic battle in Go-Go Sentai Gorenger. Their powers are gone at the end of it. They show up to fight the final villain, civvy, no suits. And they charge their sense of adventure to power the Diabolical to finish him off. Which, by the way, that villain's not finished off. He's just returned to where he was sleeping at the beginning of the first episode. So someday they can bring that character back, which is what they've been doing with a lot more of the newer ones, is they've set some kind of seed in there, like Braderin from Gosager. He showed up as 3 different powered characters in that series. Gosager had 3 sets of villains. And they changed the opening for every single one of them. So it was like watching 3 shows that year. And that right there brings you up to when Saban got the license back.
Yeah.
And did Power Rangers Megaforce. And that's when we start getting into the ridiculous naming system of the Power Rangers, because what they do is just say, hey, let's put Super on it and do a season 2, which they're not really doing season 2. They only did half a friggin' season.
There's a whole amount of reshoots that they had to do for that series, and they got it.
Not for that.
With Gokaiger, which was Super Mega Force. They had the 199 heroes in Gokaiger. We don't have anywhere near that because we have 15 missing series over here.
Oh, yeah.
And I think...
But they still had some stupid shots that had characters that didn't show up.
Yeah.
Or they unlocked powers never seen before.
Yeah.
From a planet we've never been through.
Which it's just completely reminiscent of the last episode of Saban's Masked Rider, where they got a couple of the names right, but it was from they were named on the wrong characters. Like I think they called Sky Rider Amazon,
and Amazon was called Zekros.
Yeah. It was like, wow, what in the world? But when it comes on that side of the coin with Kamen Rider, Mark Musashi did the action direction on Dragon Knight.
Yeah.
And won a friggin' Emmy for the action direction. Now, he understands that stuff because he actually is in Toku. He was in Garo, and he was the silent guy, Echo, from the original Garo. And he was the profanity screaming character in Cutie Honey the Live. Oh my God! If you watch Cutie Honey the Live, oh my God, he's great. He's going to be your favorite character. I know he's mine.
He's like the head henchman of the villain in that.
Well, he runs a different branch of the deal.
Panther Paw.
But once you see him, you're like, oh, I've seen him in this, and I've seen him in that. But he does a lot of stunt work and action direction for
International
Japan.
stuff. So. He did stunt work for a lot of movies over here. So
Yeah. But when it comes down to it, some of the Sentai storylines aren't too different from some of the Power Ranger ones. Like Samurai got it the closest, honestly.
Yeah.
SPD was pretty close to Decoranger's storyline. Which, if you're fans of anime and everything, and you don't know, and you haven't watched Decoranger, watch Decoranger, man. You'll recognize a lot of voices because who loves Dragon Ball Z? I'm like Frieza. Frieza's like the main villain in Decoranger. And
one of the other primary antagonists is Rono Zoro from One Piece.
yeah, he shows up a lot. He's actually one of the Kamen Riders in Kamen Rider Hibiki. He's one of the side ones. He's Sabaki. When they talk about Sabaki, you'll see him in one episode. Rare live action appearance of Rono Zoro's voice actor. And
but yeah, you've seen all the original 15 Super Sentai now, you know.
check them out, man. Whenever if you see something like that, the
Taiyo.
Toei Toku YouTube channel is a godsend.
For a lot of Toku stuff. Not this as much, but you know, you can that.
like there's a few of them that are out here on DVD.
I believe Gorenger.
Car Ranger's been released.
Jew
Ranger, Jetman. I think Jetman might be the earliest one they put out.
Oh, no, I think there's a Gorenger set.
Nah.
No?
Now,
Okay.
if they did, it'd be sitting on the shelf at home, man. That's the reason why this was on the shelf at home. But if you're a fan of old Toku stuff and you want to see its groundwork, pre-orders just went up for the original collection, just like this, of the original Kamen Rider. Which, if you're unfamiliar, Takeshi Hongo doesn't go away for a little while in the manga. He's dead. They kill him, and his brain is put in a computer. And they bring him back later through that, and he's a full cyborg then.
Yeah, there's if you like Super Sentai, check out Ishinomori. He created them. Cyborg 009 is a very good.
And if the artwork ever looks familiar to you, it's because Ishinomori, when he was starting out, was assistant to Tezuka. And Tezuka used to take little runabouts. And his editors couldn't find him. So they would turn to Ishinomori. Like almost 50% of Astro Boy's manga is actually Ishinomori copying Tezuka's artwork.
Which, if you look at the character's legs, it's key. Like that's where you can really notice it. Is Astro Boy's legs.
The faces, the way Ishinomori does faces is very much Tezuka. Like you're like, oh, that's the Kamen Rider? He looks like Blackjack. Duh!
But we are at the end of our time here.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was nice reminiscing with the old Showa era with y'all. And who knows, we might do this again. Might even expand out.
Get some more footage.
Old school stuff. Well, I've got spindles and spindles
Yeah,
and
we
spindles
didn't.
of stuff.
We have stuff in storage that we were supposed to pull from for this. We couldn't find it, so we've got to get into that. Maybe next year.
Definitely will. Plus, we're working with new video editing tools.
New computer too. So
And,
this is the first panel I've run on this computer.
I used to have this beautiful setup, an old Frankenstein computer that had a video editor and a video converter that was allowing me to take anything, even MKVs, and change them to MP4 so that I could actually edit them properly. And it would even put the subtitles onto the actual video feed itself instead of it being a separate little entity. And some of the clips I cut for other panels came out of that, but
Alright, so hope you enjoyed a start to your San Japan this year. Retro themed, there's not much more retro you get than old school Sentai.